So here's a question for you. Do running rigs work in silt? Now 99% of carp anglers out there are probably going to say, well, if it's silt, you need a helicopter rig. But I've been fishing running rigs in silt for the last 15 years. I never ever use a helicopter rig or a shod rig in my fishing. Why? Because all I need is a running rig. Let me show you why. So we're in drain down at the moment, and I thought this was a perfect time to try and show you how I can make a basic running rig with a semi-stiff mono hook link work when cast into silt. So I've picked an area, it's about a 25-yard cast, which is not very far, but it's going to be enough to demonstrate what I want to show. The area of silt I'm casting into, I know, is soft, gloopy and horrible, and is about 20 centimeters deep. Now obviously there's no water in the way to help slow the lead down, so this is a real worst case scenario. It's like fishing a very soft, very shallow spot at range. So the cast I'm going to make here is exactly the sort of cast that I would use if I was actually doing this in a fishing situation. It's going to be a little gentle lob. I'm going to cast just hard enough so that the lead travels beyond the spot. I'm going to slow the lead down in flight. I'm going to trap the lead in flight before it hits the water if it was there, and that's hopefully going to lower the lead onto the spot as softly as possible. Right, so we just made a little cast into the silt here. Let's see what we've got. That's the lead plugged there. Pull from there. Oh yeah. Yeah, that has disappeared from about 15 centimeters actually. So now obviously there was no water slowing that down, and look, this is gloopy horrible stuff here. If I put my boot down there, it's a good 20 centimeters of really kind of soupy horrible stuff. So I wonder what would happen if I were to actually attach a rig on and cast it in this. Even if the running lead is actually plugged 15 centimeters into the silt, just how bad is my presentation in that situation? Right, let's give this a go. Lovely. Little feather, little trap, and we've gone boom splat right in the silt. Ha! Well, there we go. I got two impacts. That's the lead and that's the bait. So I made the cast. I cast a little bit too hard, knowing that I was going to feather it down to decelerate that lead. By decelerating the lead and then trapping the lead before it actually touched the silt, I've made the bait travel forwards so that the bait has landed behind the lead, and I've got really very good presentation. So I'm really quite pleased with that. That looks very good. I cast just a little bit too hard, knowing I was going to feather the lead in flight, decelerate it, and then I trapped the lead in flight before it touched the silt, just like I would in an angling situation. And what that means is that the lead effectively will stop its forward travel, the bait will travel in front of the lead, and then the lead on the elasticity of the line will just swing back a little bit, pulling the bait behind me, and you can see that this is exactly how it's landed. So bear in mind that this is 20 centimeters of really soft gloopy silt. I'm casting directly in it. I've got no advantage of the water slowing the lead down or softening the impact. I'm not using any PVA or anything like that. Yeah, the lead's disappeared a good 15 centimeters down there because we did that on the test cast without the rig. So even if the lead plugs that deep, is my presentation ruined? Not really. Okay, yeah, the bait itself is actually kind of plopped down in. It's a good 3 or 4 centimeters down there. It's still actually visible, and in a fishing situation, if the water had slowed that down, that rig would be sitting perfectly on top of that silt. It wouldn't have smashed in like that because the water would have slowed it down. This is the exact rig that I was using on a big park lake that I've been fishing this autumn. I'm using a dumpy pair, and in the fishing situation I was actually using a long distance tournament lead, but the rig itself is the same, the lead system is the same. It's my quick change running ledger. It's the mono snowman that I've been fishing with, 0.60 mono hook link. Everything about it is exactly the same. I know it's difficult for anglers to wrap their head around, how could a running lead possibly work when fishing into silt? Well, it does. And even when there's no water in order to cushion the impact, I'm saying that that would still catch me a carp. The reason why I can make running rigs like this work in silt is because of how I cast them. It's vital that you decelerate the lead in flight, that you stop the lead just before it hits the surface of the water, and that you gently lower the lead through the water to make the rig swing down and land it gently on the silt. If you're struggling to cast to a clip or land a rig properly, then you are going to struggle into silt. It's going to be really, really hard for you because the lead's going to be going too quick and your presentation will be ruined. Now you can help yourself out by adding a PVA stick, and I definitely do this situation. If this was a real fishing situation, I would have used a PVA stick because I know that that is going to help to decelerate the lead and the rig as it falls through the water. I do that every time. When I'm fishing a big park lake, I can't do that, but I'm feeling the lead fall through 12, 14 foot of water. All I need is a big bait, something like a 24mm Scopex Squid, and a bit of spray on that because I can't put any PVA because of the range that I'm fishing, and I feel that lead down, and most of the time I get a soft little thud, and if I get that soft little thud, then I absolutely know that I'm fishing. So you do not need special rigs to fish in silt. You just don't. Nothing else is required other than a simple mono rig and a running ledger. But you have to cast them right. That's the secret of fishing in silt with running rigs. How do you know if your lead is plugging, and why does it matter? So to demonstrate this, I've got a 3-ounce pair and I've just tied it onto the end of my leading rod. We've got some 30-pound braided leader there. I'm just going to fire it into the water and then wind down and see what we got. Just going to wind down, take the slack out, and I'm just going to tighten down to the lead, holding the rod up in the air like that, and I'm just going to gradually apply load to the tip. I can see the tip flexing down. I've moved the reel 2 centimeters and it's loading up, and I know that that lead is plugged. Just by doing that, that's already plugged, and I'm going to have to apply some more load. I'm using a 9-foot 3.5 pound scope here, so it's a fairly beefy rod. I can just start to feel the lead moving. There we go, it's moved, and yeah, it's fully unplugged. There's no way that you want to be fishing like that, no matter what rig you've got on, because it means that the lead is going to have towed your bait and your hook deep into that silt. So how do we fix that? So I'm going to use exactly the same setup, a feather and then a trap just before the lead hits the surface of the water, and that is going to reduce the impact speed of the lead as it swings down and hits the silt. I'm then going to do the same plug test and see whether I fix the problem. Start to feather now, trap it, bump. Didn't quite feel the thud. That's a good 80 yards that's travelled, mind. We've got a bit of a crosswind there and it's quite shallow. So I added some control. I've taken the slack out of the line, and I'm then going to load up the rod tip, and he's already moving. It's already moving. Yeah, he's just in the top layers of the silt. Yeah, no plugging. There was a little bit of drag on the lead, but it didn't plug. When I applied the force, you can tell when it's plugged because there's a sudden release of the rod tip. If the rod tip stays at a constant flex, and that constant flex depends on the nature of the silt. Silt varies a lot in terms of viscosity and depth, but if it just loads up and stays loaded up, then the lead didn't plug. So in this scenario, even just with the bare lead, no PVA, no rig, just by slowing the lead down as it arrives at its destination with some feathering, trapping the lead before it impacts the water, I've decelerated the lead enough to soften the impact on the silt. And this is the control mechanism that we use against lead plugging.